not only is there no paper trail, no one contemporaneously ever said they saw him. I mean, no one ever had a beer with him down at the Mermaid Pub and said, oh, he was talking, I met Bill the other night, he was talking about Hamlet, his new play, or Macbeth, or Midsummer Night's Dream, or whatever. No one ever wrote about knowing him.
Okay, guys, welcome back to the Grimerica Show, episode 2, and our episode a day. Episode 2 and our episode a day, week-long 6th anniversary celebration. We're releasing an episode every day of the week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And this one's Alan Green. And this is an exciting one because Alan Green, we didn't really know a lot about him when we first bumped into him the first time. And he just sort of happened upon us. We had him on the show. He absolutely blew our minds. It was like a spy novel. And he quickly has launched up into whenever we ask people what their favorite episodes are, Alan Green consistently mentioned. The Shakespeare with Alan Green, Shakespeare with Alan Green, Shakespeare with Alan Green. This time we have a video that will be uploaded to the YouTube channel.
That will be or has been?
Oh, I couldn't stream it. Remember, the YouTube was broken,
That's
so I
right.
just recorded it.
So before this comes out, we should make sure that
I'm going to upload it tonight.
Okay,
so it'll be there.
Because people, honestly, if you have the means to do this, go watch the video because he does a presentation in there, which is fantastic. It shows the decoding.
All the decoding of the cover of the sonnets.
Yeah, and not only that, but all kinds of stuff. It ends up being linked to the pyramids and all kinds of stuff. And it gets into the page numbers that are off on the great works of Shakespeare. And he spent a lot of time decoding this, and it's hard to figure out. But
it's crazy.
It's not just coincidences. Like this number means this number.
Nah, it's too much. It's worth checking out the video for sure. Of course, that's Graham. I come in unannounced Dunlop over there chiming in.
Oh, yeah. Sorry,
that's okay. We're going to let it slide this time. It's the 6th anniversary celebration week. Of course, 6 years ago, 352. This will be episode 352. All free, all in the back catalog. Check out Grimerica.ca/support, guys, because it really helps. Really keeps the ship moving, keeps the boat afloat, keeps the show churning out new episodes. Again, they're all available.
We
all for free.
Cannot do it without the listener support.
There'd be no way. So, Utah. What'd you think of Utah?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Utah
on our great American road trip.
Moab, we went through Moab. It's pretty crazy. The big hole in the rock there and the red rocks.
Was it busy when you went through Moab?
It was crazy coming back through on the holiday, on the Monday.
Oh, that's what I was thinking.
Up like crazy. We got stuck in 2 massive traffic jams.
So how long did it take you? So was it in Moab or was it there's that bridge with the light right outside Moab? It's just in between the 2 provincial parks.
That's fine too. Moab was really jammed, just getting through the lights there and everybody leaving on that same day. But then later on through that mountain pass before Spanish Forks and all that underneath Salt Lake City, it was just all the traffic going into one lane. It was flowing fine. And then all of a sudden there'd be this huge jam and all it was people going into one lane. Yeah. I thought there was a massive accident or something. And so we were late getting into, because we were going to stay in Provo because it's just this cute, clean town. Utah seems very clean and organized kind of, and then, we ended up staying in Orem, which is a little closer to the city.
Oh, you know what I forgot to mention about Montana? Is I did drive by a couple nuke sites. Yeah. And I did see a couple, because we were on those back roads, we did see a couple of the mobile missile defense units.
And I saw a whole bunch of those convoys of military vehicles going by, which was interesting in Montana.
Yeah, we drove by a couple of those weird nuke sites in Montana. And then I was saying that I thought they were nuke sites. And then when I talked to Brandon later that day, he confirmed that that's indeed what they were. But Utah's where I shut off the directions and drove 250 miles in the wrong direction and added 6 hours.
Why did you shut them off?
Data.
Yeah.
I just thought I had it figured out, Yeah. So I was turning them on every once in a while to double check. I talked to you, and then sure enough, we still had 7 hours to go.
Oh, jeez.
It was trouble. But because we drove the extra 2.5 or 3 hours towards Las Vegas that we weren't supposed to, We got to come through 2 mountain passes on the way back. We got to go through like Devil's Canyon, Utah, and we got to go through like all the canyon country in Utah, which was unbelievably amazing. Unbelievably amazing. And then seen some arches. You must have seen some arches too. You could see some arches down by Moab. That stuff's all phenomenal.
Yep.
We were pretty close to Bryce and Zion, but we didn't have time to cut in. I'd like to do that.
Bryce Canyon, where the next one of the CACs might be?
The next CAC, is going to be at Bryce and Zion Canyon.
Contact at the canyon?
Contact at the canyon.
So it's going to be like contact at the castle, contact at the canyon.
Contact at the cabin. And if we have to, we'll be contact at the conference because all we could find was a shitty hotel.
Sure.
Yeah. Hopefully it won't ever come to that.
I mean, honestly,
we got a great team.
I could have just watched Randall's presentations all day long. I mean, part of me just wanted to have like a place to hunker down. Like, imagine being in that living room, comfy living room with everybody, and just having Randall do presentations all day long. I mean, fuck, that would be fantastic. And he was great traveling as well. But I mean, part of me just wants to pick his brain about all the stuff he knows.
But then you don't get then you don't have the time to meet everybody else. That's why I think it ended up being a nice balance between a conference and a meetup, you know?
Yeah.
Where everyone gets time to meet each other and get to know each other. So it's an emotional time when you have to leave. That's when you know you've had a good conference.
Yeah.
But Utah was A+, man. I can't wait to get back to Utah. I'm excited that the next conference is there because I thought Utah was just a shitty desert. And some of the landscape I've seen there is some of the coolest stuff I've seen.
Fantastic.
Amazing. Amazing. So what do you got? You got a quote for us? We'll do this one.
Profound QFL quote of the week.
Well, this is a bit heavy. It could be a bit heavy. I hope Alan doesn't take offense to this, but see see if you can guess this quote. This is from The Octopus of Global Control, Charlie Robinson. Depopulation should be the highest priority of foreign policy towards the third world, because the U.S. economy will require large and increasing amounts of minerals from abroad, especially from less developed countries. Possible reptilian?
Kissinger?
Yeah. Good one. Did you see that? Did you look?
No.
It says Henry Kissinger, possible reptilian.
That's it? Nice. To be honest, I missed the first half of the quote and I just guessed.
Good job, buddy. Okay, how about this one? The interpretation of quantum mechanics has remained a source of conflict from its inception. For many thoughtful physicists, it has remained a kind of skeleton in the closet.
Michio Kaku.
That's from J.M. Jock.
Son of a bitch. Oh, well, 1 for 2. That's not too bad.
That's pretty good.
Well, I suppose we won't go much longer than that here in episode 2 of our week-long 6th anniversary celebration of the show. Again, this is episode 352, all for free in the back catalog. If you just found the show, check out the back catalog, Grimerica.ca/support if you want to jump on the support team and help us keep rolling. Yeah, we started talking about next year's CAC. That's going to be a thing. We might do more than one next year. We'll see what happens, but we're definitely in talks with David Matheson right now for an event in Utah in late April.
Cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
Why can't we do summer where it's a little warmer in the desert?
Because then you have to stay up till midnight for the sun to go down.
Did you see how fucking late people were staying up at this contact?
No, because
Some people didn't even go to sleep.
The latest I stayed up was like 12:30.
Yeah.
One night.
Yeah. I think I made it to 2 one night.
Did you?
Yeah.
There
was conversations where I couldn't even fucking peel myself away from the table.
Yeah.
Like talking to friends like Brian about neuroscience and stuff like that and consciousness, and then other people telling their stories about precognitive dreams about their friends falling in the fire. Like it's incredible. Incredible. It's like I felt like I was in the best 7-hour podcast in person with people. I mean, it was fantastic.
Absolutely. We should have recorded more for sure. We should have just bugged the place.
Yeah.
Anyway, episode 2, 3 more to go in our week-long 6th anniversary celebration. Enjoy this chat with the one and only Alan Green talking more Shakespeare.
back by popular demand. We've got the Shakespeare Codebreaker, the Ancient Mystery Solver, the author and musician, Alan Green. Thanks for coming back to the show, Alan.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Been looking forward to it.
Yeah, our listeners have been requesting your presence ever since the first episode. Specifically, they wanted to know about your trip to the pyramids, and they also obviously want a little update on your last mystery that we talked about on the last episode.
Yeah. Well, I'm open to whatever you wherever you want to dive in.
Yeah. Well,
it's always helpful.
We talked about your background a bit, and we talked about the other mystery. So maybe we can kind of get into an update from that one.
Sure. It's always helpful to give a bit of a. This is funny. You keep hearing pinging. That is the first time I'm being texted today, and suddenly I'm being texted 10 times in a row. So let me just turn my phone off, although I still think it's going to come through on my computer. But
that's okay.
Okay.
That's okay.
All right. It's helped. Well, the first time we did it, there was no visuals, and my work is very graphic oriented. And so we talked a lot about, I think we talked about the music industry and working with Davy Jones and the Monkees, et cetera, et cetera. Because that's just conversational stuff. So I thought it would be helpful to give, since I'm able now to give you a presentation on Zoom and for people to see the graphics, I'd like to give you a brief recap of the basics, quite quickly, of what the whole Shakespeare mystery is about and who is doing this encoding and where those codes are showing up in the works, and then I'll bring you up to speed with some of the more recent stuff. It's all wide open. I've been working recently with. Have you ever had Nassim Haramein on your show?
No, but we've had Jamie Jan over on a couple times. I think we'll get Nassim on eventually.
And you're having Marshall Lefferts is coming on, isn't he? Yeah.
That's right. We're working on it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I know all those guys now, and I've been working with them and somewhat with Nassim because, interestingly, all the mathematical codes that are coming through on the Shakespeare stuff, there are definite correspondences with all the math stuff that he's doing, particularly the physics stuff and related to the Great Pyramid. So that's a real mind bender because I never expected it to go in that direction. But I've been doing mathematical codes on the Shakespeare stuff for several years now, and all of a sudden we're realizing, they're connecting to other people's work, which just sort of vindicates it and says, well, yeah, this is really genuine. So perhaps we'll get into a bit of that.
So is it a synchro that we received this in the mail today?
Oh, whoa. Can you show your video for that, Darren?
From who? Tetrahedron.
It came with a couple of handmade ceramic mugs. That'll listen. Oh, geez, now you got to get the card. Graham, can you talk for a minute while I track down?
Yeah. No, so I'll just stall a little bit here. So I think that is a great idea that we show your presentation because last time we were pointing people to your website, I think, for the altar stone and the stuff that you had found on there. But this will give us a better representation of that.
Absolutely, that'll be fun.
So the triangle came from Jared Carpenter at Ceramics for Life.
How nice. Well, that's a tetrahedron.
That's right.
Yeah, a very, very special shape. So if we get into talking about Nassim Haramein at all, if there's time for that, I'll show you the work that I've been doing on that too. How synchronistic.
I'm willing to sit here all night. I've got a beautiful view and I've got beautiful company and I'm ready to learn.
Okay. All right, Darren. What do you want to know?
I guess let's do the recap of the let's do the recap with the presentation that we can do with the Zoom now. I think that's why don't we
Sure.
start there? And I think with the UK posse is, if anything, it's a little bigger now, so we might be able to convince. We're actually even starting to brainstorm maybe doing an event over in the UK, so maybe we'll even just go break into that fireplace ourselves.
Oh, would you? That'd be great.
I got to see what the laws are for a Canadian if he gets into trouble in the United Kingdom.
No problem. No problem. You have my permission.
Excellent. I'll let him know.
I've got my citizenship, so that might make it worse for me.
They can take my passport away, but I don't think they can do anything to you guys. Actually, let's just talk about you mentioned just before we got on the air, Jason Louv. You asked had I got his John Dee book.
I forgot all about that. Yeah, let's tell that story. So yeah, I was just making small talk while we were working out some technical bugs here, and we were talking about John Dee. So I asked if he'd read Jason Louv's John Dee book yet, and I'll let you take it from there, Alan.
Yeah. Well, Jason, if you're listening, where's my book? He's got mine. I don't have his book. It's all cool. He wants to bring it to me personally. I know. Here's the deal. Jason and I mean, try wrapping your head around this synchronicity. I live in a pretty small apartment in Hollywood area, Los Feliz, East Hollywood. Jason was living next door to me, 5 feet away from me for a couple of years. And both of us being sort of, not exactly reclusive, but we were just both absorbed in our own work. So we would pass each other occasionally and just nod. And finally, after about a year and a half of this, I decided to say hello to him. And I said, hey, I'm Alan. What's your name? Blah, blah, blah. And we get talking. And I said, so what do you do? And he sort of hedges a bit, like, oh, I can't, you won't understand it. I mean, I'm a writer, but I'm doing a book on John Dee. Well, and I'm saying, are you what? I mean, I'm doing a book on John Dee. What are the chances? We're probably the only two people on the planet, maybe there's a third somewhere, doing a book on John Dee. And we're literally 5 feet away from each other. And I go into his apartment, and he's actually got models of the Enochian tables and the holy table that John Dee did his angel communications on. He's built life-size, accurate models of them. I've been doing all my work in basically doing the graphics about them. He's got no idea of the connection to Shakespeare. So I tell him, well, do you know that John Dee was encrypting all the Shakespeare stuff? And then he was coming at it from a different perspective on areas that I didn't know about. It was really quite stunning. It was just one of those WTF moments.
That's fantastic. What? Is he still? Is John Dee still on the table as a possibility of being Shakespeare himself, or? Oh
no! It's not that John Dee was.
Weren't people theorizing that though, or is that mystery been solved? Like who Shakespeare really was?
The mystery of who Shakespeare was is an old mystery, of course, 400 years old. No one has ever been hypothesizing that it was Dee. Prospero, the character in The Tempest, Shakespeare's most likely his last play, everyone knows that was based on John Dee. The magician Prospero, who summons up the tempest, the storm, was based on John Dee, and that's well documented. And even the Stratfordians, who are the people who think the orthodox story is correct, that the man from Stratford is Shakespeare, even they acknowledge that yes, Prospero in The Tempest was based on John Dee. And other people who have other ideas, like myself. I mean, there's a lot of clubs, as you know. There's the Marlovians, the people who think it's Marlowe. There are the Baconians, the people who think it's Bacon. The Oxfordians, the people who think it's Edward de Vere, 17th Earl of Oxford. And all of them, too, understand that definitely The Tempest, there's a lot going on in The Tempest. So that was based on Dee. But no, it's never been suggested or thought that John Dee was Shakespeare. And that's not really in the picture. But he clearly was the person encoding everything for the man who was Shakespeare. So let me give you a background on just catching up to speed on why I am so sure that John Dee is the person doing this. So I'll share the screen and start a presentation that will just recap some of the early stuff and then go into more current stuff. So I'm sharing now.
Down the rabbit hole.
Can you see everything clearly?
Yeah.
Yes.
Got it. Okay. So this is me at the grand piano playing excerpts from my musical that I wrote called Bard about the Shakespeare mystery. I'm in Holy Trinity Church, Stratford, on the official day of Shakespeare's birthday, the official day that is celebrated worldwide about the man from Stratford, I tend to refer to as Shakespeare because that's how his name was spelt and presumably pronounced with a hard A-K. There's no E in it. So Shakespeare is buried here in this church. So I'm playing piano, I'm playing excerpts. I had cultivated the church for quite a long time. I'd gone there, probably 6 times in 4 years and did a lot of work with them. And eventually they were granting me permission to film in there. And this was one of those events. So I'm at the piano playing excerpts from the musical. Right behind the piano here is the gravestone, which looks like this. Up above my head is the monument, which looks like this. And in the back there, covered in flowers, is the altar, the high altar, the Holy of Holies altar stone. And that's what it looks like close up. And I'm pointing here to the sonnets dedication because the codes say very clearly that the sonnets are inside there. Probably many other things are inside there as well. And for those of you who have not been following this story, I won't be going into the entire story of what I was doing there, but I was doing something rather naughty behind the scenes. We put up a banner to hide the altar and radar scanned the altar.
Is that the mantle that we need to get into behind you there?
Yeah.
Is that the what?
The mantle, yeah. That's the altar where the arrow's pointing from.
That's the altar. Yeah. That is the altar, yeah. The above, I'll just go back one step.
Yeah, there's inside there, right? Isn't there something inside there that we could get, if I remember correctly?
That's right. I'll get to that part, so I won't preempt that. But I radar scanned it, and there's definitely something in there. So now, looking at that, I'm going to show you now how these 3 things come together. This is the sonnets dedication on the left, about which many, 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 many books have been written trying to decipher this very cryptic dedication that says, "To the only begetter of these ensuing sonnets, Mr. W.H." It has dots between every word, and that's part of the clue. And then next is the gravestone, and then next is the monument. So I'm just going to look at only one thing in the sonnets. Sonnet 121. Scholars never, ever go near this because it is absolutely incomprehensible that the poet, whoever he was, could get away with saying this. He says, no, I am that I am, and they that level at my abuses reckon up their own. I may be straight, though they themselves be beveled by their rank thoughts. My deeds must not be shown. And all these phrases, level, reckon, straight, bevel, rank, they're all Freemasonic references. But the I am that I am is the name of God given to Moses on Mount Sinai. And so literally, King James in 1603 or 4, it's imprecise, gave, it's imprecise as to when he first initiated it. He put out a proclamation, which became law, that said you cannot say the name of God under penalty of a huge fine at that time. You can't say the name of God, you couldn't say the name Jesus Christ, you couldn't say the Holy Trinity, all kinds of things. He said you can't say them in a play, in a poem, in a May Day parade. And the reason was it was called the act of abuses. And so here's Shakespeare using that word. No, I am that I am. That's the name of God given to Moses by God on Mount Sinai when he's coming down, bringing the 10 Commandments down. He says, who should I say sent me? And God says, Ehyeh, Asher, Ehyeh, which is translated, I am that I am. But it also says in the sonnet there, they that level at my abuses reckon up their own. So this law was called the act of abuses. And he's literally telling the king, he's saying to the king, hey, what's your own abuses, man? You can't be leveling at my abuses. You reckon up your own. It's absolutely astounding that anybody could get away with it, but let alone a commoner from the sticks. So that's a huge, huge issue there. And
you have been found guilty by the elders of the town of uttering the name of our Lord, and so as a blasphemer, you are to be stoned to death.
So, that should have happened to him. Literally, that was blasphemy, compounded with treason, because he's actually talking to the king, saying, you level at my abuses. So that did not happen. Did not get stoned to death. But the actual encoding of that phrase, I am that I am, is a very, very simple code. It was called an Atbash cipher. Here's the Hebrew alphabet along the top. Hebrew alphabet reads right to left, as you probably know. So starting with Aleph on the right and ending with Tav, the last letter, on the left. But if you reverse them and put the alphabet against itself the other way around, so that each letter is substituted. So Aleph becomes Tav. And that is the most simple cipher that was used prior to the Renaissance to indicate the name of God, because the I am that I am is, you see the Hebrew underneath here, it all starts with 3 Alephs, 3 letter A's. So if you turn those into Tavs, the last letter, to encode it, it becomes Tav, 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 or Tau, 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 3 T's. And it's known as the triple Tau, and it became used by Royal Arch Masons as a symbol for the 3 crosses at Calvary, which were Tau crosses, not Latinized crosses, but Tau, just a single piece of wood across one vertical. And so that has its meaning of, it's representing the 3 crosses at Calvary, but then they turned it into a symbol that looks like a TH inside this 2 inverted triangles, which we know as the Star of David, but really it started long before that as the sigillum of Saturn. And so it's an esoteric symbol. And the TH is really 3 T's joined together at the base. T there, T there, T there. So it's called triple Tau, but it has this internal other meaning that is indicated by the letters looking like TH. And there are 3 Latin meanings for it. Clavis ad thesaurem, which means key to the treasure. Theca ubi res preciosa deponita means place where the precious thing is concealed. And Templum Hierosolima, first temple of Jerusalem, Solomon's temple. So all these meanings are intertwined in that one symbol that is called the triple tau. And it literally means the I am that I am, the name of God. Well, here's Shakespeare's gravestone that was right behind the piano where I was playing in Holy Trinity Church, Stratford. And if you look closely, you can see there's a triple tau right there in full view. It's not even encrypted. 3 T's right there in the middle. And the THs, in fact, it forms a cross with the name Jesus across the top, a tau cross with the name Jesus. There is no name Shakespeare on the gravestone. The only name on the gravestone is Jesus. And if you look at the THs there, you find they are not separate THs. They are ligatured together. It's called a ligature in the printing world. They are hooked together so that they imitate that symbol, TH. Another clue. This is the key to the treasure, the place where the precious thing is concealed. So what about the monument that was above my head where I was playing? There are THs in the monument. You can look at this for years and years, and people have, and no one had spotted. And then all of a sudden, I don't know, but once you see it, you suddenly go, oh, yeah, look, there are THs, and all of them are the same. They're all ligatured together. They're all this secret symbol of the Freemasons, TH, ligatured together. I am that I am.
No way.
So you've got, they're in a particular grouping. There's 4 on the left and there's 6 on the right, but there's also a couple of other things that are ligatured. The M-E in monument and the M-E in name, they are ligatured together too. Now that's never done. I mean, that's just not an authentic ligature. What is he saying? He's saying, I am that I am, me, I am that I am. And they're in a certain grouping of 4 and 2 and 6. Well, 426 is April 26. And this is the baptism record for the man born Gulielmus Shakespeare. April 26 says, that's the father's name, Johannes Shakespeare. So it's saying Gulielmus, filius of Johannes Shakespeare, son of Johannes Shakespeare. These 3 crosses, it's always said, well, this is the family signing their mark, because the family was illiterate. 3 X's. And yet it could also be intimating 3 crosses, the triple tau symbol. Now back to the dedication to the sonnets. Remember I said there's a dot between every word. To, dot, the, dot, only, dot, begetter, dot, of, dot. The whole thing makes no sense when you read it. But what are those dots about?
New sentences.
Well, they're in, sorry, say again? Yeah?
Starting a new sentence? Is that like separating each word? So it's not meant to be read together?
It's deliberately separating each word, but yeah, I mean, but each word, not a sentence, it's just 2. Dot, and they are organized in 3 inverted triangle shapes of 6 lines, 2 lines, and 4 lines. Now, this is not my discovery. This is what set me off on the whole game 15 years ago. There was a man named Dr. John Rollitt who hypothesized that because there were 6 lines, 2 lines, 4 lines, and dots between every word, perhaps we're supposed to count the words by counting the dots. So the 6th word would be these, and then 2, and then 4, and then 6, and then 2, and then 4, and then 6, and then 2. And when you do that, it spells out these sonnets all by ever the 4th T. And he thought he was onto something because the leading candidate for Shakespeare at the time was Edward de Vere, who often played on his name, Vere, and liked to do anagrams. And so these sonnets all by Vere, perhaps, that's what that's saying, the fourth T. But he could not reconcile what the fourth T meant. And so it was just left to languish. And one other person put their 2 cents worth in, and I believe this person was right, and his name was Art Neuendorfer, and he suggested, if the triple tau is the 3 crosses on Calvary, people at the time, or at least those in the know in the Freemasonic movement, would have known. And people will argue about it. They say, well, the Freemasons weren't around at the time, but the Rosicrucians certainly were. And the Rosicrucians then sort of morphed into the Freemasons later on in 1717. But they've been around all that time, and they were a secret organization. So Art suggested that perhaps the fourth T meant the fourth cross. And what's the fourth cross? After the 3 at Calvary, that would be the fourth person to be crucified in Christ's name after his crucifixion. And the fourth person was St. Peter. So perhaps he's saying there was a suggestion, let's say 15 years ago, slightly longer, that these sonnets all by E. Vere, Edward de Vere, perhaps, the fourth T, meant that he was equating himself with St. Peter, that he wasn't saying, oh, I am divine, as the sonnet 121 seems to suggest when he says, no, I am that I am. He's not even using the name of God. He's saying it in the first person. But anyway, this was a hypothesis put out that here's Apostle Peter being crucified upside down. Peter asked to be crucified upside down because he had denied Christ 3 times. And then when they finally caught up with him and wanted to crucify him, he was so ashamed. He said, no, I'm not worthy to die the same way as my Lord. Crucify me upside down. Okay, so if that were the case, and that happened in AD 69, Neuendorfer was the person who had suggested perhaps you put this dedication into a grid. Well, when you put it into all kinds of grids, this is how you do it. You take the letters and you put them into a certain grid length, and then you wrap them around and you look for a meaning vertically. And he's looking for the triple tau, and he found something. He found that, yeah, there's a triple tau right there and an inverted tau cross, spelling out the name de Vere. This was quite revolutionary at the time, but nobody took it any further. It sort of languished, as I say, and because Rollitt said, well, I don't think we can truly understand what the fourth T means, nobody took it any further. Well, I did. So I at that point, everything else that follows on from here is my work. And I decided to, okay, if that's the case, perhaps one looks for that same pattern in the other pieces of the puzzle, which certainly would be the gravestone and the monument. So that's the only grid that you can put that in, a 19 grid across that gives you both a triple tau and an inverted cross saying the name de Vere. Here's the gravestone, and I put this into every possible grid and found that the only one you can get a triple tau out of and an inverted tau cross next to it is this. It's a 17 grid. There's the triple tau, and here's an inverted tau cross right next to it, spelling out Vere's, the family name of Edward de Vere. Interesting. So now we take the monument and you put that into all the grids until you find a triple tau, and the only one that gives it to you is this, where you've got a triple tau and an inverted tau cross equally balanced against it at each end, saying E. Vere, Edward Vere. So at this point, I'm thinking, well, at least we've got consistency. You've got the sort of consistency that you would look for in a code. There are 3 triple taus. The triple taus are all over the monument. The triple taus are all over the gravestone. And perhaps he's saying, I am the fourth tau. These sonnets all by E. Vere, the fourth E. And it represents the 3 times that St. Peter denied Christ and then was crucified upside down. So perhaps Edward de Vere is equating himself with him, saying, I am not worthy. I'm not saying I am the same as Christ. I'm just saying I'm equating myself with Peter. I'm doing the work of bringing this truth to you, but I should be perhaps equating myself with someone who was crucified upside down. So at least that was the kickoff point of it. You look at then these three inverted triangles, they're all over the Freemasonic jewelry. Is the triple tower at the top, the three inverted triangles, you see. It's in their aprons that they wear when they do their various rituals, etc. And then, but you look at the fact that there's this inversion going on. 624 is inverted as 426 in the gravestone and the monument. You've got 4 lines, 2 lines, 6 lines. So perhaps there's something going on there with that idea of mirror imaging the codes, a 624 and a 426, but we still don't know what it means.
His birthday.
Now, in order to understand where this is going, you have to understand that the sonnets, there are 154 sonnets, and if you were to map them on a calendar, this is your calendar of any year, except leap years. If you were to map them, so the sonnet 1 was January 1, sonnet 32 would be February 1, and sonnet 60 would be March the 1st, and they would end here on June the 3rd. And if he wanted to then be able to reference a certain date, he runs out at that date, so he would just start again with another set of sonnets, going from 1 all the way to 154, and then starting again here. And with that system, he can basically then map out and make reference to any date that he wants to make reference to. You could find the dates that are significant in his life, like the dates when the queen died and the queen was buried and the new king came on the throne, and Edward de Vere's own children. And you find then that when you map them against one another this way, the sonnets that reference those dates that have significance for him are suddenly seen in an entirely new light. And you can see, oh, yeah, that's what he's talking about. Now, I'm only going to take you through one here because it's too many to go through. But this one, here's the sonnets. It goes from, and these are the original, this is the original printing in 1609. It goes from sonnet 114 to 115 to 119 to 117. So obviously that should be 116, but it's been turned around. Now, what is that about? If that is really, that's 116, but it's wrong, he says at the end of that sonnet, if this be error, and upon me proved, I never writ, nor no man ever loved. He's telling you it's not a mistake, this is a deliberate error. And so what does that reference? Sonnet 116 references this date, April 26, 426. Remember? April 26, and the baptism certificate, the day that Shakespeare was baptized. So this is telling you that is wrong. It's been fixed. And in fact, the sonnet itself uses this expression. Oh no, it is an ever fixed mark. Fixed. If this be error, he's telling you it's not an error. This date has been fixed. The actual date, 426, has been made to be 426 in order for the codes to work. Now, in my first book, Decoding Shakespeare, at the end of it, I show very, very convincing proof that baptism registry has in fact been fixed specifically to accommodate that, because there are 50 years of entries all in the same hand by the vicar who was the vicar at Holy Trinity in the year 1600 and 1601. But he's gone back all the way 50 years to rewrite everything. And in fact, the original baptism registry is gone. We know that. And this is a copy but it's all written in one hand. He couldn't possibly have done all those entries himself. Therefore, he put them in himself. And by the time when he gets to 426, that's the date he puts in for Shakespeare being baptized. Now, why would you do that? If it's fixed, remember this, the 426 in the monument. What if it's read Hebraic fashion, right to left, just like that code I showed you that is the initiatory impetus for starting the Atbash cipher that gives you the triple tau, turning an aleph into a tav. If it's backwards, if it's right to left, the way the Hebrew alphabet goes, that's 624. 624 is June 24th. And June 24th is, in this sonnets calendar, sonnet 21. And sonnet 21 also uses the word fixed. Now, if he uses the word fixed all over the place, that would not mean anything, but he only uses the word fixed in 3 sonnets, and the other one is significant too, but I'm not going to go into that one for you because that's too long a story. So what's 624 about? June 24th. Why would that be significant? In the 16th century, pagan calendar celebrated the summer solstice on 624. Today we do it on 621 and 622. But remember back then, the calendar was all out of whack. We were changing over from the Julian to the Gregorian because time was slipping out of joint. In fact, Shakespeare says that in Hamlet, time is out of joint. And all the farming was going off, and so they had to fix that. So, but in those days, 624 was the biggest celebration they had besides Christmas. It was Midsummer's Day. Interesting. He writes something about that, doesn't he? There's a play called Midsummer Night's Dream. It's also the cusp of passing over from Gemini into Cancer, which has the symbol 6-9. Remember, the 6 and the 9 were turned around in sonnet 116, which was written as 119. And that is the 69 symbol, is that's the point, it's the Royal Archmason's symbol for the keystone. What it means is the sun at its highest point in the equinoctial cycle, the Royal Arch. At that point, that's the summer solstice. Okay.
And it was the day, it was also the year of the upside down cross.
Exactly. Well spotted. Yep. And then it's also the feast of St. John the Baptist, who's the patron saint of, anybody know? Freemason.
Freemason. I should have known.
624, John the Baptist, patron saint of Freemasons. But it's also the night Edward de Vere, get this.
Nice.
Got laid.
Died. How did he manage that? Well done, Darren, or Graham, or whoever it was that shouted it out. I mean, now you're getting somewhere, right? You're going, hold on. This cannot be. The 426 has been fixed. Perhaps the 624 has been fixed in order to make it balanced, because the Rosicrucians love to balance the codes with mirror imagery, as you will see now. So 426 fixed, 624 June 24th fixed.
So he didn't really die that day then? Is that?
That's what I'm saying, yeah. The history records that Edward de Vere supposedly died on 624 in a certain year, and we'll get to that. But no one wrote a thing about it. It was a non-event. He was the most famous nobleman in the land. He was at the House of Lords. He was a great Lord Chamberlain. There should have been outpourings of grief. There should have been eulogies for him. There should have been all kinds of people writing about the fact that, hey, the Earl of Oxford just died. No one said a word. He disappeared. But clearly he didn't die. But it's the same literally on the day that Shakespeare of Stratford dies. He dies 1616 on his so-called birthday, April 23rd. No one wrote about it. No one said a word. Nothing. It was a non-event. So this 426624 balanced mirror imagery thing, does he say anything else about that to tell us that that's what's really going on? This is the first folio, a massive book, the most expensive book, printed book in the world. It went on, the last one that went on auction at Sotheby's fetched $6.5 million, one book. Paul Allen bought it, the co-founder of Microsoft.
Wouldn't that be the worst book to just spill your coffee on?
Is that the one I spilled coffee on? Yeah, no, I hate it when that happens. I mean, it's just so annoying. Just wiped out a whole, like $1 million worth of value. No, I'm pretty careful with mine.
You have one?
No, I do not. But look at this. Wrong page. You saw the wrong sonnet number in the sonnets. Look at this. The first folio has all 36 plays in it, and it is full of wrong page numbers all over the place. Here's one example. Page 264. The scene in Twelfth Night. And it says at the very top of page 264, it says, no man must know. No man must know. What follows? The numbers altered. No man must know. And indeed, what follows? Page 273. The numbers altered. He's telling you right there. I mean, it's right in plain sight. Well, why have the numbers been altered? And then when you get into this and spend 15 years like I have and have no life, you find out, oh, it was a code. Because it takes that long to figure it out. But every one of the wrong numbers in the first folio is part of a code. And it's thrilling. It's wonderful. And then right below that scene, he says, MOAI doth sway my life. MOAI. It's the whole scene in Twelfth Night where this character Malvolio is being tricked by the other characters who don't like him because he's a pain in the arse, and they drop a letter in front of him, and he picks up the letter, and the letter is intended to make a fool of him and make him believe that the lady of the house, Olivia, who he's her servant, make him think she's in love with him. And he spends almost a whole page of this scene trying to work out, in fact, he's saying it's a code. It says MOAI, and he tries to work out how those letters are part of a code, and he never solves it. And yet, if mirror imagery is employed, which is, as I am saying, is, you see it in the 624, the 426. What is MOAI? If you turn that around, it makes IAOM. And it turns out that IAOM is the most secret password of the Freemasons. Now, I'm not a Mason, so otherwise I probably wouldn't be able to talk about it. They swear under penalty of death to not reveal this secret. But it's in one book, and one book only, that I read, called Thinking and Destiny by Percival. And I guess he was just a Grand Master who was finally about to kick the bucket, and he didn't care anymore, and he wrote this thing. And at the end of the whole book, about page 900, he reveals the secret of IAOM. And it's a breathing technique that is equivalent to a pranayama technique in Vedic philosophy or meditation. It's a way of achieving enlightenment, of bringing energy up the spine and to the third eye. And it's supposed to be breathed with a certain sound, IAOM. So here's Shakespeare giving it away in the play. And yet, and a couple of lines later, he actually says, if this fall into thy hand, revolve. Meaning revolve the MOAI to give you IAOM. He literally is telling you how to solve it in that play. Most productions, since they don't know what it's about, they even cut out that whole scene because it just seems to make no sense. It's never solved in the play. It's for us to solve.
Is there a page 462 in that book?
There is none, no, because it's about 1,000 pages, the entire book, but they are divided into comedies, histories, and tragedies. So they each go up to around about 300, 350, and then they start again. But there's also all kinds of wrong numbers all over the place. But I'll show you just one more at the very, very end. Right, this is the very end of the book. It goes from page 398 to 993. Well, obviously it should be 399, right? But again, they're telling you, no, mirror imagery, 993. We love this balance of opposites. 426 becomes 624. MOAI becomes IAOM. 399 becomes 993. All the codes are going to work that way. And that's what basically my first book was about, telling you about the 426 and the 624. Here's John Dee, and there's the 17 grid that I put the gravestone in to find the triple tau and the inverted tau cross. But here also in that is in perfect balanced mirror imagery, Freemasonic T-square fashion, the words ears and eyes. Here's Her Majesty Elizabeth I wearing her favorite frock covered in ears and eyes. John Dee was known as her ears and eyes. He was her spy in Europe. He was on Her Majesty's Secret Service, and his code number was 007.
Oh.
So this was known, when, what's his name? Gee, I always blank on his name. What's his name?
Bond?
James Bond. But the guy knew the John Dee story. John Dee was Queen's leading astrologer and the leading mathematician at the time and the greatest cryptographer of the time. And he was also her spy in Europe, code name 007. Well, here, look how this just stuns me. What a beautiful sense of humor he has, as well as everything, because there's 007 and his name in the shape of a 7. So now we come to John Dee and the angels, and this is deep. This is what I was in Prague just a couple of weeks ago, researching where he lived and what he was doing there, because it was the center of the alchemical world. But this is called the Enochian tables, and it was channeled to him by angels. What he called angels. Now, you've just got to suspend your disbelief whatever. I tend to think that these are, perhaps the word angels is freighted too much with religious connotations. Certainly, they are higher beings. He was in communion with angels that he called angels for 8 years. And they channeled to him this. It's called the Enochian tables. Remember, I started telling you about Jason and I being neighbors. Jason was doing the same work. Staggering. Look at this. There are 624 characters in the Enochian tables. It was channeled by the angels on June 24th, 624.
No.
So I intuited, okay, let's add up all. We've got these 3 pieces of the puzzle. We've got the sonnets dedication and all those dots. It turns out in John Dee's most famous work, the Monus Hieroglyphica, he states in the Monus Hieroglyphica that in it there be not one dot wanting, not one superfluous dot, and not one dot wanting. He actually tells you in the preface to that work, which is a mathematical treatise that's hardly even understood today, that he uses dots in his encoding. No one who's tried to solve the Shakespeare mystery has thought that there were codes has ever counted the dots. And I stumbled upon this simply because I didn't know any better. I just went in and said, oh, well, the dots must be important. And I counted the dots, because why would they be there otherwise? Why are all these dots? So when you count all the letters and all the dots in the sonnets dedication, it's 178. And you count all of the characters and all the punctuation, the dots, the commas, in the monument, it's 332. Gravestone, all the characters and the dots, 114. Can you hazard a guess what it adds up to?
624.
yeah. So obviously now you know that, oh, come on, if you got 624 of these things in the sonnets, dedication, the monument inscription, the gravestone, that are all covered in THs that are ligated together, telling you, oh, secret Masonic symbols. What are you going to do with those if you've got a freaking Rosetta Stone that's been channeled by angels and has 624 squares in it, and it was channeled to them by them on 624?
Yeah, so that lines that up now with the calendar that we were making before, where we were restarting.
Well, it lines it up with the Enochian tables, and in a moment it will line it up with the calendar. Yeah, Darren, you're right. So you take that, literally take all of those characters and dots, and that would be called the ciphertext. And then you put them into a blank version of the Enochian tables, which has exactly the same number of characters. And you put them in this order: 6, 2, 4, 2, 6, 2, 4. In other words, 6 lines, 2 lines, 4 lines in the sonnets, 2 lines, 6 lines, 2 lines in the monument, 4 lines in the gravestone. It just goes in that way: 6, 2, 4, 2, 6, 2, 4, down to the last dot. But you have to know what the key is. There must be a key to solving this. If those letters that you've now put into the Enochian tables are going to be pointing to the Enochian tables, you got to know what the key is. Well, we've already been told what the key is. It says nothing is wanting but the key. Clavis ad thesaurem is the key to the treasure. That's the double T at the very beginning that is here in the sonnets on the right-hand side. It's supposedly the name of Thomas Thorpe, the publisher, but it's just signed his name T. And there are 5 sets of those double T's, and they are pointing across at letters in the Enochian tables. And you simply isolate those letters, and it says living page. Okay. But remember in 12th Night, he says, if this fall into thy hand, revolve, turn it around. So you look in the Enochian tables, make that the ciphertext, and now plain text is in the actual sonnets, monument, gravestone. This never happens in cryptography at all, that the key is in the piece that is to be decrypted. There are 5 sets of double T's in the Enochian tables, and they point back to these letters in our monument, gravestone, and sonnets. And that says, yo, stigmata. Yo is a Middle English word. It means look at, but it doesn't mean just look at it. It has a very specific meaning. It says really, really pay attention to. That's what yo meant in the medieval times. Really pay attention to the stigmata. Stigmata are the stigmata wounds of Christ, the 5 wounds of Christ: 2 in the hands, 2 in the feet, the spear in the side. There's a living page. What can that mean? There's a document being kept alive for posterity somewhere, but where? Okay. But he says, revolve. Inconceivable that you could turn this upside down now and do the same thing again, and now send it in the order 42624226. And the TTs now in our gravestone, monument, and sonnets are now pointing to completely different letters in the Enochian tables. And you separate them out, and then you'd go backwards like we did before, from the Enochian tables back to our plain text, those letters. And now this is 20 characters forming the longest anagram you can possibly see. And I went by that very, very fast. It's an anagram of a perfect sentence saying, I have hewn desiderata, period. One of the characters is a period. I have hewn desiderata. I have hewn means cut into stone. Cut, hewn is a word we hardly use. And desiderata is Latin for my desires, what I want you to know. But it's not just that. It's when you put them together with the first part, it says, living page, yo stigmata, I have hewn desiderata. It's a rhyming couplet in Shakespearean form, telling you there's something been left alive, a page, a document. Look at Christ's wounds where I have cut into stone what I want you to know. Could not be any clearer. Where are the stigmata? The stigmata are in one place and one place only in the church. They are in that altar stone. It's a 3-ton block of marble, and on the surface of it, all consecrated altar stones in the Catholic Church have to have 5 crosses on their surface. This was consecrated in 1208. They cut a hole into the rock underneath, take it out, put inside what the Catholic Church calls relics of a saint, whoever they say is a saint, and it's put into a tiny little box about the size of a child's shoebox. And what it will have inside is maybe a few slivers of bone of the saint, and perhaps some of the saint's writings, a scrap or 2 of paper, and maybe a scrap or 2 of their clothing. And that is considered by the church holy. And it's put inside what is called a reliquary, a gold or a silver or a lead box. This is what the Catholic Church says it must be. And you put it up inside the bottom of that entire big rock. That rock there, the Holy of Holies altar stone, is 9 foot long by 3 foot wide by a couple of feet deep. It weighs 3 tons. And they put it in there, and they put the concrete back in the rock that they've taken out, the small piece at the bottom, so it's not seen. It's invisible. It would be hidden underneath that whole casing of the altar. And on the surface are the 5 consecrated crosses, the stigmata wounds of Christ. And then, when all of that is done, it is considered consecrated, and you can celebrate the mystery of Mass at that altar stone, which is its purpose. It is the Holy of Holies altar stone, the holiest place in the church, where you celebrate Mass, where you take the wafer and the body of Christ, the wine, the blood of Christ. To a Catholic, that's the most sacred spot that you can do, and it's the most sacred event that you can have, and you are communing with Christ. So to them, that's it. That's the entire center of the Catholic life, and it's right there in that altar stone. And yet, the codes are saying, living page, your stigmata, look at those stigmata wounds. I have hewn desiderata. I've cut a hole in that stone.
So do the 5 wounds, is that like, because if you trace those out, that makes like the pentagram, doesn't it?
It makes the what, Darren?
Pentagram?
It doesn't exactly, because if you can imagine, it's just an oblong. There's 2 in the top. There's top left, top right, bottom left, bottom right corners. So there's 1 in each corner, and there's 1 in the center. So it literally makes just a diamond shape, as it were. Oh, okay. But that's what he's telling us is there in that altar stone. Now, I'm not going through the entire thing here. I think those, if you want to know, see the videos of me scanning the altar and getting the results. They're on the website, but literally, this is basically what I did. We scanned it while I was performing for the congregation. While there was a banner in front of the altar hiding it, I had them turn all the lights down in the church so that we had complete darkness. And I said, let me sing the last song of my musical, Sonnet 18, by candlelight. I mean, the candles around the piano, and I sang that Sonnet 18. All of that is on the website. You can see me doing that. And then we had a team behind the banner scanning the altar. And that blue that you see there is the size of the cavity that was found. Instead of being a tiny, tiny little shoebox size, it is 250 times the size it's supposed to be. 250 times the size. So my effort there was finally to go, I've got the proof. I've got scientific proof that altar stone has been carved out.
And it's got the
and
Holy
so
Grail
on my
in it?
website, beornottobee.org, you can go and vote. Yes, I want to know what Shakespeare left for us. Or no, I'm not interested. Let's leave it another 400 years. So the idea is to try to get people to go on there and say, just vote, whatever you feel. Do you think we should find out what's in there or no? We've got about over 13,000 votes so far. It's hardly viral because I haven't really been promoting it, but I'm going to be promoting it heavily now from now on and through in this summer. We've got a very, very big announcement coming as to what we're going to do to convince the church that they must open it in full view of the public.
What do we think is in there again?
The paperwork from Shakespeare is like his Like there's no paperwork really there's no paper trail from Shakespeare. So I think what he's saying is that's all the documents that Shakespeare left, right?
There is nothing, yeah. Greatest writer in the world never wrote a letter to anyone. There are no manuscripts. There are no plays, no poems, not a page, not a line in his own hand. Talking about the originals. Now, what's in there? I can only speculate. I can tell you that the codes are, and there are so many. I mean, I'm just scratching the surface and showing you this introduction to it. But he has put the codes all over the place. I will show you where the most recent ones that I've found, because it's a beautiful way of tying this whole thing together. But there is no paper trail. Yeah. Not only is there no paper trail, no one contemporaneously ever said they saw him. I mean, no one ever had a beer with him down at the Mermaid pub and said, oh, he was talking, I met Bill the other night, he was talking about Hamlet, his new play, or Macbeth, or Midsummer Night's Dream, or whatever. No one ever wrote about knowing him. No one in Stratford ever said he was the man. He himself never said he was the man, and when he died, it was a non-event. Nothing happened. No one came to the funeral. No one said a word. The great writer. You see, we're distanced from it by 400 years, but it only started to be big about 200 and odd years ago, when they started to really decide that this should be a terrific promotional thing for Stratford. Let's really bring this story to the fore. And at that time, it started to gain a lot of traction. But immediately after his death, and for quite some while, no one was really, it wasn't a thing until people got interested in it years and years and years later. So now, do you have any questions? Let's open it to questions if anybody has any questions, and just to take a brief breather, and then I'll tie in our current work.
Yeah, you've documented the state of that altar enough that you can tell if somebody's gone in there and removed your treasure.
I've thoroughly documented. Well, first of all, you have to understand how it's situated. It is concreted into the floor. It's concreted into the back wall. You can't go in there and just take it out without having to cause it'd have to be shut down. It's a major construction renovation type thing. So, but I mean, it's hard not to get conspiratorial that now that they know something's there, like they probably want to get it first. Yeah, I have an informant there in the church who's there and who will let me know if anything untoward ever begins to start to look like it's happening. But what they'd have to do is, if the Men in Black or the MI6 or whatever you want to call them decide to come in and say, well, let's just check this out. Maybe Alan's a complete nutcase, but let's see. And I think it's quite on the cards that they will already have done that. They will have scanned it themselves. But they would have found what I found. And that is that, hey, instead of a tiny little hole, there's this enormous cavity, 250 times the size it's supposed to be. And you can see in the striations of the color that it is full of something. Now, if they decided we're going to go in and then just take it out, find out what it is, I do have an informant who will be telling me of that, but it would have to be in the form of hey, there's a gas leak, and we had to close the church for a couple of weeks. So it would be news anyway. We'd know if it was going on. But frankly, if that were to happen, I have filmed there on 4 occasions. I've filmed that altar in absolutely every conceivable detail. I know every crack in the concrete, in the cement, in how it looks. If anything were done to it, we would know. And not only that, if it came to that, and I just don't think it will come to that, because until it's an enormous story, there's just no pressure to open it. So it's not as though I'm going to go in there and be able to open it unless I were to handcuff myself to it and go on a hunger strike or something.
There you go. Is that your plan?
Are you going to happen?
Are you giving us a little sneak peek into your plan
let's open it.
Well, what is what's a little sneak peek into your summer plan then? How are you going to get this thing out?
I can't say yet because it involves us offering the church something, and we're going to go over there and have a talk with them. But I will be announcing it once I'm sure. But you understand, the strategy has to be so carefully planned because of what we're now beginning to talk about. It is now out there. It is now open, and there is the possibility that they will want to go in and do whatever they might want to do. But I just don't see it being something that can possibly happen whilst there's no threat to them. In other words, even if this became the biggest story, if we got 10 million people voting online to open that altar, if Oprah showed up there next week with a mic in their face and said, 10 million people have voted to open your altar, what are you going to do about it? They would still hum and ha. There would still have to be an act of parliament passed for the country to decide that we should do this, because it's hard for us to grasp in America just how enormous a thing Shakespeare is for the English. But it is enormous. They did a whole what do you call it? They had people vote about 7 or 8 years ago on what they were most proud of in England. Is it the monarchy? Is it the British pound? Is it the parliamentary system? Is it the Beatles?
Yeah. Then they voted their new boat to be called Bodie McBoatface.
Shakespeare is the thing that they are most proud of. You don't come and mess. You don't mess with our bard. There's a word for it in England: bardolatry. It is basically a religion. So go ahead.
Would I be correct if I'm thinking that what we're getting at is like Shakespeare is not a real person? It was just all made to get this code put forward by the Freemasons?
Undoubtedly, there is someone who wrote the plays. Undoubtedly, there is a writer who was the real Shakespeare.
Because I think it's probably all they've been faking it for longer than we think.
Faking what?
Everything, history, news, whatever.
Yeah.
Well, as you've seen from these codes alone, I believe it's Edward de Vere because his name is all over it. But that's just scratching the surface. It appears over and over and over and over and over. Now, so the question is, why would somebody do that, and how could it be pulled off with the help of presumably friends and those in the know? It's not so hard to imagine that. I mean, this was 400 years ago. We're in a different era now, but FDR, nobody knew about his illness. John Kennedy, everybody kept quiet about his affairs. It's not as though it's the hardest thing to imagine that a conspiracy of silence would surround this 400 years ago. But you have to then grasp, what is the meaning? Why would he do such a thing? And that in itself is possibly, to me, the most beautiful part of this. But it's a long haul, and I'd like to show you something else that will help you understand that first. But I don't know, are we live with anybody able to call in, or has anybody written in any questions, or is it just not, should we just carry on with where I'm going with this?
Well, yeah, I'd like to know about how that links to your visit to the pyramids and the stuff you were researching then. That's what our listeners want to know about as well.
Yeah. Okay. If I'm always unsure as to how much time you've got and how patient people are. I'd stay here all night, but I'd have to show you. You've just mentioned, how does it connect to the pyramids? Well, to somebody who's coming into this brand new, they're going, well, what? Well, where does that come from? So I'd have to show you. There is a very short video on YouTube, 13 minutes, called Bard Code, Bardcode, where you can see that on the cover of the sonnets, the actual title page of the sonnets, someone, and clearly to me it's John Dee again, but of course it had to be with the cooperation of the printers as well, has embedded sacred geometry into the cover of the sonnets. So I could show you that if you like. I just steer clear of trying to overload everybody with too much information. But that's where what you've mentioned comes in. So you've seen it, and so you know that on that cover of the sonnets there is geometry. There is very, very accurate geometry that shows a circle with 6 perfect right angle triangles in it. Each right angle triangle, if you measure its ratios, is telling you a mathematical constant from pi to phi, the golden ratio, to Euler's number E, to Euler -1, to Brunn's constant. The only trouble is 5 of them were not known in 1609 when the sonnets were printed. So how is that even possible? And then the coup de grace of that whole thing is literally he gives us the geographic coordinates of the Great Pyramid. He's telling us to look at the pyramid. I can show that if you want.
Yeah. We got to do that. Let's do that. We got as much time as you need to.
Last time we chatted with you, you were about to go to Egypt to measure some of that.
Yeah. Okay. So you want to see that?
Yeah.
Yes. Resounding yes.
Okay. Let me go here and finish this one, and then open up a new, because I'll have to open up a new presentation.
Yeah.
So just carry on from this because it's still attached to what we've just done. This, if you remember, there's the first folio, and I talked about there being all these wrong page numbers, and he's telling us that there are wrong page numbers and that they are part of the code. The numbers altered. This is fairly recent work. Literally, I've been only doing for the past month. This is a Midsummer Night's Dream, because obviously you got to get to the point of saying, okay, if this is all centered around 624, the summer solstice, the night Edward de Vere supposedly died, the mirror image of 426, April 26th, the day Shakespeare supposedly was baptized, all that mirror imagery, and he wrote a play called A Midsummer Night's Dream. He probably then is telling us something in A Midsummer Night's Dream, isn't he? He must be. If that's what it's about that very day when he apparently disappears. According to history, he died, but then no one ever said a word about it. So here's Midsummer Night's Dream. It goes from page 158 to 159 to 160 to 163 to 162 to 163, beginning of Merchant of Venice, back again to 162 to 163. I mean, okay, what's going on? To 166, to 167, to 168, to 169. Why? What is that about? There's this pattern, 163, 162, 163, 162, 163, and then back on track, because the ones that are missing out, you see that it's not as though he's changed anything by the time you go all the way through. It goes through in order. 161, 62, 63, 64, 65. The blue ones are what it should be, but he's decided to go bump, 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 bump for some reason. Okay, so, and it's right at the middle, connecting A Midsummer Night's Dream to Merchant of Venice. So let's look at the Merchant of Venice part of it first, going forwards in this way, and then we'll go backwards to Midsummer Night's Dream, and you will see what this is all about. Here's all the pages of Merchant of Venice, and all the M's at the top of the page are in this florid M style, an italic M, but then there are these where it changes to a non-florid style. The rest of the word, Merchant of Venice, all of that is still the same, but he changes the font on just the capital letter M. Why? Is that significant? Well, yeah, it is. the dots at the end of Merchant of Venice, yeah, it's a period at the end of the title. They're where they should be. All of those are where they should be.
Ooh, that one
But
has two.
these are on this one, on one of the M's, he's got two dots. Down here, the dot is up above. It's like it's the top dot of a colon. It's not a period. This one, the same. It's the dot above Venice. What's going on here? Well, if you examine those pages, that is 170 is when the Prince of Morocco arrives. And it's probably the most famous scene in Merchant of Venice, where the suitors of Portia are arriving to choose between a lead casket, a silver casket, and a gold casket. And if they pick right and her image is within it, they can marry her. And she's the most eligible bachelorette in the world, right? She's beautiful, she's rich, so all these guys are coming over. Prince of Morocco comes over. This is from the Al Pacino version of the movie. Here he is choosing gold. He's disappointed.
All that glistens is not gold. Often have you heard that told. Gilded tombs do worms enfold. Beware. Your suit is cold.
So that's that famous saying, all that glitters is not gold. Prince of Aragon arrives on page 172, again where the M has been changed. And he chooses silver.
Did I deserve no more than a fool's head? Is that my prize?
So he doesn't get the lady's hand. Prince of Morocco does not. Prince of Aragon does not. And next comes Bassanio, the one we're all rooting for because he's hot and young and she fancies him, and let's hope it all works out right. And Bassanio, it comes in. But again, you see, it's the moment that they are making their choice, gold, silver, or lead. Remember what I told you about the altar? The altar stone has to have within it a gold or a silver or a lead reliquary. That's the Catholic Church's law, wherein the relics of a saint are kept. There's a connection here. He's telling you something about the altar. And Bassanio chooses.
So may the outward shows release themselves. The world is still to see with wonderment. Therefore, thou gaudy gold, I wonder of you. Nor none of you, O pale and common drudge between man and man. But you, O meager lead, which rather threatens than does promise. Your paleness moves me more than eloquence.
Hooray! He gets to go.
And he chooses the lead?
He chooses lead. All that glitters is not gold. Outward show, no, it's not that. Silver, no. He chooses lead, and that wins her hand. But why have we got these two dots after merchant of Venice. Who works in dots? John Dee. Everything he does is about the dots. He tells us so. I'm giving you codes in those dots. And so there's 2 there. And the way he uses colons in many others of the codes is to signal that they really take up two places in when he's putting them into the grids to make them be significant so that they will line up correctly. So the 174 is literally pointing us from 174 when Bassanio is choosing to 175. Now, let's look at Morocco, the Prince of Morocco. And this gets a little deep, and there's a bit of math in this, but this is where we need to go. This is how he spells the Prince of Morocco's name, with a theta, not an O. There's an O here and an O here, but that last letter is a Greek letter theta, and theta is used exclusively in geometry to signify the angle of a triangle. And so why would you, I mean, it's nuts. Why would you go and do that specifically to say, oh, I'm telling you something mathematical here, and you're going to not miss it because I've changed the M's to draw your attention, and now I'm going to show you what I'm doing here. That's the first, the end of page 170, down at the bottom. It says, how shall I know if I do choose the right? He doesn't say, how shall I know if I do choose right? He says, how shall I know if I do choose the right? That's a Masonic and a Mason's way of saying the right triangle, a right-angled triangle. He's talking mathematics. He's giving you a hint about where to look for significance in the mathematics. Here's the top of the very next page. 170. Is it 172? I can't see because of my fingers in the way. And I'm only just doing the book. It's 170. Yeah, it is 171. It's straight after. So he says again, how shall I know if I do choose the right? It's a mistake because the catchword at the bottom of the page, and this is how printers alerted themselves to how pages should be paginated. It says pour for Portia, the, and that will lead you to, oh, that's the next page is pour for Portia, the. But he's made it deliberately look like a complete mistake. The line has been put in twice, and it's never to be said twice. If it was, then the catchword would be how.
Right.
So why has he done this? The right angle triangle. There's Morocco spelled with a theta instead of an O. Here's that Morocco spelled with a theta instead of an O.
And why does he put the second sentence without a question mark as well?
I'm sorry, what, Darren?
Why does he put the second sentence without a question mark as well?
Yeah. You guys are good. To be honest, it's to do with the number of characters. But again, if we go into that, I'll get sidetracked and this will take. But it's a good question. Really, honestly, I haven't solved that. I just know it's part of why you're supposed to look at it for sure. And I don't know. I don't know whether it's just to say you must look at it or it's to do with the numbers. The number of characters in that line is 33, which is the significant number of, right, the 33rd degree level of Freemasonry. Is the highest level you can achieve. So it's 33 characters, then followed by a question mark, and then 33 characters without the question mark.
It could be just to show you that it's there on purpose, because if it was there as a mistake, he would have had a question mark. If it was a mistake, it would have been.
Yeah, I don't have anything definitive on that, but I'm saying I've only been working on this last month, and so maybe we'll figure out why. But right now, I think you're probably right in just saying, it's just to draw attention to it. if not seeing the line twice doesn't draw attention to it. But what that actually to say the right instead of it should be, how shall I know if I do choose right? But the right is telling you, no, we're dealing with mathematics here. We're dealing with right angle triangles. So literally on the left there, the number of lines between Morocco and the how shall I know is 10 lines. On the right, from the Morocco to the how shall I know is 14 lines. Okay, I mean, I've been on this so many years now that I just know how John Dee works, and I just go there and I go, okay, I know what he's doing with this because he does this all the time. He counts lines, he counts words, he counts characters. Here's your 3, 4, 5 triangle, the most sacred icon of the Freemasons, from without which Pythagorean theory, right? 3, 4, 5, 3 squared plus 4 squared equals 5 squared. Without that, we can't do any engineering. We can't build the pyramid. We can't build the great Gothic cathedrals, and we can't fly to Mars. That's the absolute basis of all physics and engineering, and it's their symbol. It's literally all over the place. Or you look at Freemasonry, there's a 3, 4, 5 triangle. But he's drawing your attention to it over and over with a theta, the letter that is used to designate an angle. Now, for those of you who will get eyes glazed over with math, sine theta just means literally one side of the triangle over another. So in this case, the sine of the angle theta is 3 over 5. And the cosine of the angle theta is 4 over 5. And if you then add the sine and cosine together, they equal 3 over 5 plus 4 over 5, which equals 7 over 5. But notice, he's got the 14 lines up on top of the next page. He's got the 10 down below. 14 over 10 is the same exact thing, just doubled. He's telling you there's something significant in this. And 10 into 14 is 1.4. Now, from the sonnets, which I have not shown you yet, but that's the whole deal, we end up with that. That's by connecting the dots on the sonnets cover, you get this perfect circle and these right angles, triangles. And that one gives you pi, and this one gives you Euler's number E, and this one gives you the golden ratio phi. And when you look deeper into it than I've ever shown on my YouTube channels yet, you realize he's telling us something enormously significant. I couldn't believe it when I found this. I thought, this is crazy. The world must know this. He's telling us that, well, besides this, he's adding foot cubic meter is in the lines of the lengths of these lines, and these other ones, Euler-Mascheroni constant and root 3 and Brunn's constant and phi minus 1 and the Fibonacci constant and others as well. But the important thing is that E times phi over pi equals 1.4, or to be precise, 0.001. Now, is that significant? Well, look what we had here. He's showing us sine theta plus cos theta equals 1.4, the 10 over 14 lines. They're the same thing. That means that sine theta plus cos theta of a 3, 4, 5 triangle equals that. And if you then invert that, it means that if you were to multiply that, pi over E times phi times the sine theta plus cos theta of a 3, 4, 5 triangle, it would equal 1. I went looking for this everywhere. I bought every book I could on the golden ratio, on Euler's number, on pi, on Pythagorean theory, on 3, 4, 5 triangles. You would think that would be the most beautiful thing, and it would be on the front cover of any math book. It would get kids interested because it means there's a connection between the major constants, pi, phi, and E, and a 3, 4, 5 triangle. And the world doesn't know it. It's nowhere. You can't find it anywhere. The fact that it equals unity is staggering. And here's John Dee, through Shakespeare, telling us that. Now, I then went further into the Great Pyramid because he's telling us to look at the pyramid, and I found the same connection there with the foot and the cubit and the meter that tells you exactly the same thing, that phi, there's the angle theta, there's the sine theta, cos theta, same thing, 4 over 5, 3 over 5. It gives you this equation. and it goes 0.99999, and then on to infinity. It is, I mean, that should be a staggering thing. It's like an E equals MC squared thing. It's just, what? Why doesn't the world know that? And how come it took Shakespeare to tell us? It's telling us there's a unity that we have missed somewhere in these constants, and he's shown it to us on the cover of the sonnets, and he's showing it to us in the freaking Merchant of Venice for some reason or other. Now, what I deduced from that was, why could you not make this absolutely perfect? I realized there must be, it's 0.99999, but it's not 1. It's damn close, and so that's very, very significant. But perhaps there's something in the Great Pyramid that equals 0.00001, and that would mean that if you add it to this equation, you will have found a perfect connection between the mathematical constants, the 3-4-5 triangle, and the Great Pyramid, and it is unity. And I have found what it is, and it's to do with the precession of the equinox, and it's embedded in the Great Pyramid. But again, it's too long a story to go into. Where I want to finish this, what you're seeing here is Prince of Morocco had a double clue. How shall I know if I do choose the right? How shall I know if I do choose the right? Prince of Aragon had a double clue. Down at the bottom of his page, it said the fire 7 times tried this. And at the top of the next page, it says 7 times tried that judgment is. A double clue again. What does that mean? When you realize he's dealing with mathematics, perhaps he's talking about the number of the page, 172. 7 times that is 1204. 1204 is the year that, and I'm going to have to read my notes here to just get this right because this is all brand new. It's the year that Constantinople was sacked by the Roman Crusaders. Constantinople, the event shocked the whole world for its brutal treatment of Christians by fellow Christians. The Republic of Venice figured large in the horror. Venice, this is about the Merchant of Venice, right? And remember this, people assume that this is a very uncomfortable play. People have said it's anti-Semitic because of the way Shylock is treated. And I just could never believe that. I thought, no. I mean, come on, he's a satirist. He's telling you right at the end how awful the Christians treated Shylock. So it's not really sympathetic to the Christians at all. But he's buried this in there, that to give you that very year. This is the most shocking. This to them at that time, this would be like Abu Ghraib, only times thousands. The Crusaders literally set fire to the city of Constantinople. It was Christians.
Wasn't that the end as well? Wasn't that the end, like one of the last battles of the Crusades?
Absolutely. It was the Fourth Crusade, yeah. It was basically, and you end up with, the Catholic Church only just apologized for this, like in 2004. It's a huge stain. Well, Catholic Church has plenty of huge stains on its reputation, so its current ones has far outstripped this now. But at the time, this was the most shocking. The entire world was in conniptions about it. And if you think about it, Shakespeare could not have written a condemnation of such a thing because the Catholic Church the whole deal was that the Catholic Church is in charge and they're burning people at the stake. But literally, he uses this expression, the fire 7 times tried this, 7 times tried that judgment is. He's making a statement that the Christians are absolutely the villains in this piece in Venice. They did horrible things. They raped nuns and the women of the town. They burnt the town down. And so he uses that, the fire 7 times tried this. Here's a picture by, I've forgotten who it's by. Bassanio now. Now, where this is going is there a double clue for the Bassanio search for gold, silver, or lead? And it's the double dots, isn't it? So at the bottom of his page, he says he's talking about balancing opposites, to give and to receive, one of two. I'm not sure if it be his or no. He's in shock that he's chosen right and he's going to win the lady, but he's still asking for her to tell him for sure that she is his. And she answers, and he's still talking here, thrice. So there's a clue there, thrice. There are 3 dots. There's the 2 dots leading into the 1 dot. But then she starts talking, trebled 20 times myself, 1,000 times more fair, 10,000 times more rich. In your accounts, exceed accounts, the full sum of me, sum of nothing, which to term in gross. All these she's talking mathematics over and over and over again. He's saying, look at the mathematics of this. Well, what can that possibly be? There are 2 other M's with wrong periods in them. These ones, where the periods are up on top. The one with the 2 periods, that's the only time it ever happens in the entire book, in 907 pages of the first folio, the only place where you get 2 dots together like that. And then there's only a couple of others where you get them shifted up like this. He's telling us something, and it's obviously got to do with the numbers of the pages. So you isolate that, 181 and 184 and the 174 and the 175. What is 181 and 184? It's 365. Oh, a calendar. Not only is it the calendar of 365 days, it's exactly how the 6 months are split up. The first 6 months of the year, there's 181 days. The second 6 months of the year, there's 184. He couldn't be clearer. He's telling you the calendar. That's exactly how the year splits up. And so what's 174 and 175? 174 and 175, those days of the year are here. That's June 23rd, June 24th.
Which is when is it?
The solstice. Again.
It's Midsummer's Eve. It's the solstice. Edward de Vere disappeared at midnight on the cusp of the 23rd to the 24th, June 24th. The entire thing was planned for him to be gone on June 24th, and he put on a production. Well, I'm saying I can't imagine that he did not do this, that he put on a production of Midsummer Night's Dream and then just disappeared at the end of it. I mean, how do you do the numbers? How would you literally do that, the numbers, to make it work out that way and say, I'm telling you, 174, 175, the 174th day of the year is Midsummer Night's Eve, and the 175th is the day I'm going to be gone, June 24th. So now we look back to Midsummer Night's Dream. I'm almost done. This is very, very quick. Midsummer, because I haven't finished doing the presentation on this yet, but I'm so excited by it because it's just ridiculous. Here's a Midsummer Night's Dream, and it starts out, the very, very opening phrase of the entire play is the Duke of Athens, Theseus, saying to Hippolyta, his fiancée, that we're going to get married. 4 happy days bring in another moon. He's saying our nuptial hour draws on apace, but oh, methinks how slow this old moon wanes. She lingers my desires. He's horny. He's looking forward to their nuptials. And she says, 4 days will quickly steep themselves in nights. 4 nights will quickly dream away the time. And then the moon, like to a silver bow, now bent in heaven, shall behold the night of our solemnities. Now, he could have just said, hey, honey, we're getting married in 4 days' time. I mean, we know that the play is Midsummer Night's Dream, so we know it's got to be set at the solstice, and we know that this Midsummer's Eve is the night they're in the forest, and Midsummer's Day, June 24th, is the next day when they all wake up from all this madness in the play. But he doesn't need to put in the phases of the moon. He doesn't need to be telling us what the moon will look like. That's what the moon will look like there. You can work it backwards. You can say, well, on the 26th, it's like a silver bow. So 4 days back when Hippolyta was saying, that's when the play starts. 22nd. And so the 23rd is the next day, and we know this from the play, and they elope to the forest, and the 23rd, all the madness freaks out. That's Midsummer Night's Eve. And then the next day, it all gets solved, and that's the 24th, June 24th. So he's telling us this, and yet he has no need to put the phases of the moon in, because the only thing the phases of the moon will tell us is the year. That's going to tell us the year that he's pointing to. Now, as the play moves along, there's another reference to the moon, and this is the mechanicals who are rehearsing a play that they hope they'll be able to present at the end of the wedding festivities. And the play they're rehearsing is Pyramus and Thisbe, a pyramid. All right, and they're rehearsing this, and they say to themselves, but there is two hard things, that is to bring the moonlight into a chamber. Pyramus and Thisbe meet by moonlight. So Snug asks, doth the moon shine at night we play our play? And then Bottom, he's the guy with the donkey head, remember? He thinks he's a donkey. Well, he's turned into a donkey by Puck. Bottom says, a calendar, look in the almanac, find out moonshine. And Quince says, yes, it doth shine that night. Well, we've just been told it doesn't. Who are you going to believe? The Duke of Athens, the educated aristocrat who starts the entire play off and says, the night we will be married is basically a new moon. The moon will be just a thin sliver of a bow and that's when they'll have the play. And now you've got the commoners, the mechanicals saying, oh, we've got to do the play on that night. Does it shine that night? Yes, the moon's shining that night. Again, he has no need to do that. He's drawing attention to it. He's telling us, pay attention to this. Who do you believe? Well, if you remember, the mechanicals, they would be the people who, they know nothing. They don't know it. They just look up in an almanac, and the almanac is wrong, isn't it? Because the time is out of joint. And we're switching over from Julian to the Gregorian calendar, and there's 10 days shifted. But as far as the educated aristocracy is concerned, the Duke Theseus, he's going to know, there is no moon that night. It is a new moon. But why is he going to all this trouble to tell us this? So you look in the almanac. I looked in the almanac. I have an almanac that can take me back to that and say, what year do these moon phases line up? Such that that's when the play starts, and that's when it ends in the solemnities. And June 23, June 24th are the entire center of the play and what it's all about.
It's going to be Shakespeare's birth year.
Any advance on Shakespeare's birth year? It's a wonderful puzzle, isn't it? Okay. Graham?
His baptism.
That will be the same as what Darren said, the Shakespeare's birth year. Yeah.
I think they.
I don't know.
Okay.
I was thinking 1204, going back to that, but that was a significant battle in the medieval history. So I'll go with that.
Right. True. That's true. I checked that, and that was in April. That was April 12th. It's not significant. It's not that. Okay. So anyway, 23rd, 24th. He's telling us, the cusp of precisely that. The whole idea of the whole 69, the solstice, the symbol.
13,000 years ago.
So it is what? What, Darren?
Was it 13,000 years ago?
13,000 years ago. I didn't go back that far, man. I guess I could, but I didn't need to.
Man.
Okay, so this is what it is. 1604.
Huh.
That's the year that Edward de Vere died. The only year when the June 23rd to 24th is going to be precisely what they say in A Midsummer Night's Dream. is that now it repeats around, it comes around 19 years, every 19 years. So 19 years from then, both De Vere and Shakespeare and everybody's dead, right? It's not going to be 19 years from now. And 19 years prior, well,
18.6 years probably. Yeah, exactly.
Nobody's known, and even Edward de Vere hasn't started really writing. So he's telling you in this, he's telling you that's the year that I am going to disappear.
Huh.
And he's deliberately done that in Midsummer Night's Dream, the night Edward de Vere died, June 24th, midnight, Midsummer Night's Eve. And he's embedded it in something that he does not need to do. He doesn't need to tell us the phases of the moon, but he's telling us because that's the one clue that is going to enable you to find out the year. Pretty remarkable, huh?
I missed something about how it connected to the pyramids. Besides that last verse that you showed us about that phrase, but
yeah. All right. At the very end of the play, the mechanicals are chosen to be the entertainment. And there are lines in the play where Pyramus is dying, and he says, "Oh, wherefore nature didst thou lions frame?" Let me get to it. No, was fairest dame. It's a very, very, I mean, it's a whole joke because the play itself that is put on within the play is supposed to be corny as hell, and they're all laughing at it. But in the middle of the play, he says, he's the pyramid. He's the pyramid. He's Pyramus, and he dies because of on this particular. He mentions moon in the play, and then he says, "Thus die I. Thus. Now am I dead. Now am I fled. Moon, take thy flight." That's the night that he chooses to leave. And so he's literally telling you in the play that uses the name Pyramus that that's the night that he is going to disappear. I grant you that's not totally satisfying as to it being the connection to the pyramid, but let me, you did ask me to show you the sonnets cover. So should I show you that now, just briefly?
Yes. I like the cover of the, is that the one with all the right angles and stuff all over?
Yeah. I mean, because for people that haven't seen it, it's just perhaps the most stunning. I think it's the easiest one to get into this whole story with, because codes, look, we're doing a 2-hour show here, 2.5 hours, whatever it ends up being, 3 hours, who knows? Most people don't have that attention span, Kids today, they want it to be 2 minutes, 3 minutes. It's only interested people like yourselves and your audience who have got the attention span to get deep into something, because this has been constructed with the most incredible care and attention to detail. And they went to such incomprehensible trouble to do this. It deserves our attention, but of course we're in a very flighty sort of world right now. No one's particularly interested. And just tell me the nuts and bolts of it, because I got to watch the Lakers. And so, but this to me is still the easiest one, and it's the one I get the most response from, because people see this and at least they can say, well, that's slam dunk. I mean, that's just slam dunk. So I'm going to share, let's see, keynote, this one, because it's math and it's just, therefore, you can't gainsay it. It's going to be right. So here we start with, and I will probably race through this. This is the cover of the sonnets, never before imprinted at London, 1609. And then you notice that we're going to, again, it's dots. It's John Dee using dots to say, let's connect the dots. This italic T is a slope that's telling us, oh, if we connect this dot to that dot, bingo, that T was like a T square. Is there any other dot that we might want to connect to that's drawing attention to itself? And obvious, the G dot is 6 or 7 times the size it should be.
Yeah.
So you connect that G dot and you end up with a perfect right angle triangle. Now, I should note that I'm using here the most accurate version of the sonnets in existence. There are only 11 sonnets covers in existence. They're all held in highly protected vaults. You can't even get to see them. They're never put on show. And only 5 of them are this particular copy, because the other 6 are wrong copies. There are 2 versions of the cover. One, if you look at it, it gives you no geometry at all. This one gives you the geometry, the one that says William Astley at the bottom. I said 5. I'm sorry, there's only 4. There's only 4 in existence of those. So and 7 are the other ones. So it was very, I believe what happened was he printed these separately and just hid them in the libraries of the aristocracy, where he knew they would be protected, and eventually, hundreds of years later, they would be found, and that would enable us to finally decode this. Because the ones that went out that had a wrong cover, that gave you no geometry at all, they fell into an absolute silence. There's no proof that they even sold one copy of the sonnets. There's no record of it even being spoken of by people for 50 or 60 years after it was put out. It should have been a bestseller if it was intended to be a bestseller, if it was intended to be Shakespeare's sonnets, but clearly it wasn't. It was suppressed. They were looking for him, hiding something. That is, they meaning the Cecils, the people who were ruling behind the throne and the new King James. And they probably burned them all. I can't say for sure, but they just disappeared into a vacuum. So it's one of the biggest mysteries in literature, is what happened to the sonnets? Why did nobody read them? Why did nobody say anything about them? Anyway, so you look at this one line here hanging out to the right, you isolate that and you say, oh, look, there's another perfect right angle triangle. And again, I must stress, I'm using the most accurate version, and I've blown it up to 5 to 6 times its original size, and the accuracy with which I'm working is all to 3 decimal places. These are not close to right angles. They are absolutely, specifically spot on. And so, people attack this all the time. I get trolls all the time saying, oh, you connect enough dots on a piece of paper, of course you get triangles. Okay.
Fuck them
sure.
trolls.
So you connect this one, and that's another perfect right angle triangle, and you connect this one, and that's another perfect right angle triangle. In fact, that's a perfect 3, 4, 5 triangle. The Freemasons' icon, right? Pythagorean theory. What is this really? It's if you can connect it all with a perfect circle going through all of those points. And that is a visual representation of one of the earliest ever mathematical or geometrical theorems. It's called Thales' theorem, which says that if you've got a diameter of a circle, any point on its circumference will give you a perfect right angle triangle. And he proved that, and that's called Thales' theorem. But Thales was Pythagoras' mentor. He was the guy who told Pythagoras to go to Egypt to learn from the priests there, to learn the higher mathematics of the Great Pyramid and all of their ancient knowledge. But he's most known, Thales is, for one singular thing. He was the first person to measure the height of the Great Pyramid, and he did it using right-angled triangles. Stuck a stick in the ground, measured it. He could measure the stick, he could measure its shadow, he could measure the distance of the shadow of the pyramid, but he couldn't measure its height. But he could, therefore, by by doing congruent triangles, he could say, oh, I now can know the ratio because I've got this stick in the sand, so I know the height. He's the first person to do that, to think of doing that. And that's Thales. So what's this doing on the cover of the sonnets? A visual representation of the first mathematical theorem that had tremendous significance and that is pointing to the pyramid.
Did you notice that he was born on that? Did you notice he was born on that day too? That like was it 624?
1604 he died. But
624 the magic number?
No, this date at the bottom is 1609. This is the date that
no, it was the date that other dude was born.
Well, yeah, but what are you connecting then? Where did
I thought 624 was the magic number?
It is for a lot of things, but where are you seeing it in this?
You'd have to go back a couple slides.
But this is and he died in he left his body, let's say, he faked his death in 1604. The sonnets were printed in 1609.
Yeah.
Where that read.
I was talking about the Pythagoras' mentor.
So go back a couple slides.
Darren, my God, you never miss a trick. Well done. I always forget to mention that. Yes, damn it. I've done this so many times that I forget to even mention that because Thales was born circa 624. I was very excited the first time I saw that, and then I realized, well, it's circa, nobody knows for sure, but nevertheless, it's another little hint, just like Saint Peter getting crucified upside down in AD 69. But yeah, well done. Thank you. Okay. So going further, there was that. If you connect now the other two that intersect of those lines with the circle, you've got a total of 6 perfect right angle triangles. Why would you do that except for there's only one good reason you must measure them. It's clever, but why, it doesn't mean anything unless it has a purpose. So you measure this against that, and it gives you pi. You measure this against that, and it gives you Euler's number, 2.718. But remember, that was not known. That Newton did not discover that until 1669, 60 years after the sonnets. It didn't become common knowledge until 100 years later after that.
Didn't we still think the world was flat then?
Say again, Darren?
Didn't we still think the world was flat in 1609?
Some people still think it is, Darren. You should have them on your show.
No, we shouldn't.
I did. We got in a fight.
Have you seen that Netflix show, The Edge of the Curve, or whatever it's called? I could not stand it. I started to watch it, and I thought, I can't believe these people exist. Okay, all right. Anyway.
So this is a good example, though, of how they're referencing all these different mathematical theories in this one thing here with the 6 triangles.
Yeah. So here you measure this one, the light blue one, that's E-1. And E-1 is 1.718. Well, again, we don't even know how important that is today. We just know that E is important, and very, very few scientists or scholars ever point to E-1 as being significant, and yet they've made a point of putting it in here as being absolutely, it's absolutely significant. This next one, this is Brune's constant. It was not discovered till 1919. These two here are phi and phi minus 1. They balance. The left side is E and E-1. The right side is phi and phi minus 1. This is from the Fibonacci sequence. These give you the Fibonacci constant. That's a variation of the Fibonacci sequence. That wasn't known until 1914, and yet there it is on the cover of the sonnets. These give you that gives you root 3, but if you invert it, it gives you the Euler-Mascheroni constant, 0.5772. So again, we don't need to know what all these mean. It's just that they are there, and they are obviously there intentionally, significant.
The fact that there's all that overlap in those same couple of points. We're talking about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 points. And you got all those different things. I mean, that's just some of the nature of reality.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right.
Because I mean, they might not even have known they were encoding that at the time. They might have just been going for the first couple.
It's a good point, Darren, and I wrestle with this sometimes because what it ultimately means is where this is leading, as you know, and I'll finish it off, but it's leading to the Great Pyramid, and he's obviously telling us, look, I know this, we're putting it here to preserve it. Don't forget the Gutenberg press had only just been out about 100 years at this time, and they were finally able to do copies where before everything had to be done by hand. So finally, you're at this point of never before imprinted. Yeah, let's do this. Let's immortalize it. Let's make sure we print a ton of copies of these so that this knowledge will not be lost. But your point being that they may not have known some of it. It's just inevitable because it springs from that unity that I pointed out earlier. Pi over phi times e times the 3, 4, 5 triangle is 1. It's inherently there. And I more and more believe that now, because where this is going is that there are 12 constants embedded in the cover of the sonnet. And he's telling us to look at the pyramid. And when you look at the pyramid, then I did another couple of years work on the pyramid to find that, those exact same 12 constants are there in the pyramid. If you look up right now, pyramid and constants, you'll see, pi and phi and maybe e. Someone in 2002 made a suggestion that maybe e was there. But that's it. No one has gone deep enough to recognize that, no, it's much more than that. So all the 12 are there in the pyramid, but I didn't let it go at that, and I kept at it for years. And so I've now catalogued 80 constants. 80 of the most significant constants that we know today are in the absolute basic proportions of the pyramid, just by making ratios of, say, a corner slope to a base to a diagonal they're all there, including things like the Planck constant, the absolute limit of the tininess of the microcosm.
So that's kind of like the cover of the sonnets is like a reverse engineer of the Great Pyramid in a way.
It is exactly that. Yes, it is exactly that.
I get it.
I often say that it's a 2-dimensional, tiny, because you're looking at this on a screen now and it looks pretty big. It's only, that circle is only just over 3 inches in diameter. On a tiny little book, it's a 2-dimensional replica of the biggest 3-dimensional object on the planet, the Great Pyramid. It's a staggering accomplishment.
And is that including is that 80 constants, including the concave nature of the pyramids, which they sort of didn't realize before?
Yes,
it's actually.
Yeah, that's what I did my second journey out there to measure that very specifically with some radar equipment, and in order to prove what I had a hypothesis about, but I couldn't prove it without measuring it back. Yeah,
so you did prove it then? Did it work out well?
Yes. Yeah. But again, you're fighting the same. It's interesting. The resistance to Shakespeare is the same as the resistance in the Egyptological world. There's a paradigm. Don't rock our boat. We make our living off of this. We've taught this for 400 years. Egyptologists, we know what we're doing. It can't be built by anybody older than, say, 2,500 BC, because then you're at Neanderthal man, and then you're at apes.
Yeah, but when are they going to realize that letting this come out and opening up to some of these deeper mysteries would increase their tourism? I mean, it would just make
I know, and that's the first thing that anybody who with any sense says. I mean, that's the first thing that people say to me about the Shakespeare thing. They say, "Don't you realize that the church will benefit once they open that altar? Tourism will go up exponentially. They will make out like bandits. And plus, whatever is in that altar is theirs. And they can slap it on a wall and put it in a museum and charge whatever they like for it from now to eternity." And it's the same for the Egyptologists. You're absolutely right. If Zawi Hawass had his way, there'd be you can't, no research. Why? I don't know. It's very, very hard to comprehend why this protectionist idea, because But I think ultimately it comes down to, if we admit that there were higher civilizations that we presently now have lost touch with, then we have to abandon the hypothesis that we teach in schools that evolution is linear, that we are the smartest now that we've ever been. And as we go back and back and back, we get dumber and dumber and dumber. And of course, it cannot be true. But in order to break that paradigm, there's no way out of it, because yes, we do get into the Dark Ages. And so how could these monuments all over the world have been built to such extreme tolerances that we cannot manage now? Only one way. Evolution is cyclical. Yeah. The yugas, the golden age, the silver age, the bronze age, the iron age. The Vedic scriptures say Satya Yuga, Treta Yuga, Dwapara Yuga, which we're in now, and Kali Yuga. When they're burning books and burning people, we lose our knowledge and then we gain it again in this long, long precession of the equinox, which is a 24,000-year cycle. It's commonly cited as 25,920 years, but I have a problem with that, because that's its measurement a couple of hundred years ago, and it is speeding up. And so Walter Cruttenden has done a lot of work on this at the Binary Research Institute, and I'm doing his CPAC conference in October, where he invites people who are, again, all us, our crowd, right? The Graham Hancocks and the Robert Shocks of the world. But the point is, there's only one way out of it. There's only one way. That is, every single cycle that we look at, from the Earth spinning itself to the Earth spinning around the sun, to the sun and the solar system spinning around the galaxy, to the galaxy itself spinning around a larger grand center, from electrons spinning around atoms. Everything is spinning in cycles. So why would the one outlier be, evolution? It's just linear. No, it's cyclical, just like everything else is. But they're stuck in their paradigm, unable to admit that, because they just can't break past that. I don't know. It's protectionism of it's a willful myopia that I don't understand. And I think any of us who think this deeply, it's just as baffling to us.
It's changing now. I mean, it's starting to shift, I think.
It is, absolutely. You're right. It is. But it's a battle, because it's still resisted tremendously by the powers that were. All right, so let's finish this off. If you take that line directly going right through at a right angle to the hypotenuse from the 1609 dot to the end of that line. Why is that line hanging out there? It's just hanging out. It could end anywhere, but no, they had it end there at that precise point where you can draw a perfect right angled thing, and you can do a tangent here at G to the other line. Oh, well, they must be important too. You must measure them, and it turns out that this one gives you root 2, and this one gives you root 6, and this ratio gives you root 5, and on and on and on. And all this stuff ends up showing you that ultimately you've got the foot and the cubit and the meter there, which I have given presentations about at CPAC, showing how that is in the Great Pyramid. It's in the basic proportions of the Great Pyramid. The foot and the cubit and the meter are all intimately there. They're not just. It's not just that there are connections. The actual basic proportions of the pyramid embed the values of the foot, the cubit, and the meter.
Is that pre-metric system?
Is it what? Sorry?
Is that pre-metric system?
A pre-metric?
Pre-metric, yeah. Is that where they got the metric system from? Is that measurement there? Is that where it started?
It has to be, yeah. I mean, we talk about, it was just after the French Revolution, 1785, and let's go around measure 1/4 turn of the polar radius from the North Pole down to the equator. And at least that measurement is based on science. It's the only one, the French metric system. They said, well, let's make that be 10 million meters.
And then they went down, and then they went all the way down to the millimeter from there.
Meters. And so we just divide it into 10 millions and we make that a meter.
Yeah.
At least that is based on science, whereas a foot is supposedly some guy's foot and a cubit is supposedly some guy's elbow to it. I mean, it's silly, isn't it?
Well, it's more sacred in a way too, though.
Sorry,
it's more sacred in a way though too. I mean, there's some interesting sacredness to the foot and the inch and.
Oh, there is, yes. But what I'm saying is that we're taught that no, they were just randomly plucked out of the atmosphere, and they can't be because they're all there in the pyramid. Anyway, so here we got those. Those are the ones that were not known back then, 5 years ago, and the meter was not 5 years ago, 400 years ago, and so all of that is done with just 2 lines and 4 dots. Honestly, if you were to ask, well, Stephen Hawking
is that the Pleiades?
No, it's not.
Wouldn't that be nice? I don't know.
I don't know if that would be nice or not.
Like if I would say Darren again. Sorry.
I don't know if that would be nice or not.
Well, it would be interesting if those 4 dots was a constellation. I mean, that would be interesting.
It would be, yeah.
That would mean it was a simulation for sure. Come on. You
guys honestly, I have to say, you guys are the smartest guys I've ever done a podcast with. You asked the right questions. And in actual fact, if I was to go on for another freaking hour and a half on this, I would show you that, yes, it is actually, there is, because the 2 dots that are next to the T and the T are not yet taken into account. And when you take them into account, it's not that it's giving you a precise picture of Cygnus, but it's so very close that it is very, it's hard to not imagine that Dee didn't think, oh, that's pretty, I like Cygnus. Cygnus the swan. What did they call Shakespeare? Sweet swan of Avon.
Especially because he used different sized dots too. So it's not like it's not just 4 regular periods.
Exactly.
So there is a question I have before I forget. So how did the lead come into all that? Was your bet that the lead is in the bottom of the altar stone? Like, it's a choice between 3, and it ended up being
to make such an enormous sized hole. Think it. I mean, this is marble. It's one of the hardest stones on the planet. To have cut into it, it had to have been treacherous work. They must have had to have been so careful, because the one wrong whack with a hammer and the whole thing would have just collapsed. In fact, the labs that I sent the results to said to me when they answered me, I mean, I knew that we were going to crack it. I've not wasted 15 years of my life for nothing. I knew that it was right, but the point is, well, back then it was still only 7 years of my life, or 8 or 9, I guess. But you think, I know this is right. So I sent it to 2 labs to check the results of the scans. They were unaware of each other, and they came back with the same results, identical. And of course, I didn't tell them that I'd scanned the Holy of Holies altar stone in a church. I just said, there's a big rock and we suspect there's a hole in it, And they called me up, both of them separately, saying, Mr. Green, I think you've made a terrible mistake here, because you said you were looking for a tiny hole in there, and I don't think. I mean, there's something wrong with your scans, because it's not a tiny hole; it's basically hollow. And to which I went, yes, yes.
Yeah,
it's basically hollow, and they couldn't comprehend. They said, it makes no sense. We don't even know how the rock is holding together. It's the blue area shows up as a differing density, but it's holding together. Well, I know how it's holding together is because John Dee was so advanced. He was working with chemicals all the time. He was working with how to mummify bodies. He was working on inventing. He knew how to create a vacuum. He was working on basically making a submarine. Wasn't calling it that. But, he knew how to create a vacuum within that rock and fill it with something that would basically make it, after all, if you think about it, he's going to put something
think about how the pyramids are made. You probably knew that shit too.
Yeah, sure.
Because they
And
probably would have
so,
been able to hollow out those
but
blocks.
so
of the
anyway,
pearl.
to answer your question, you're saying where does the lead come in?
Well, because of
I-
that because of the Prince of Morocco, right? He chose lead, so that's got to be embedded somewhere in this mystery. Which I think that's one of the ones they chose to put under the corners of the altar stone.
Yeah, well, it was Bassanio that chose the lead. Morocco chose the gold. Aragon chose the silver, and he's telling us no, both of those are wrong. So it's the lead that is right. And if you think about it, if he had to fill and put a plate of protection throughout a hole that is 250 times the size it would be, he couldn't do it with gold, and he couldn't do it with silver. It would be utterly astronomically impossible financially. So he did it with lead. And in order to do that, he would therefore have done that and make it be absolutely impervious, hermetically sealed, in other words. Nice word, too. Hermetically sealed, so that he would then draw a vacuum. Why? To what purpose? To absolutely preserve whatever he's hiding in there. Absolutely preserve it so that it would still be fresh as a daisy when we go in there and open it. Because if he's going to put, the works in there, if it is the works, well, they would deteriorate over time, wouldn't they? They'd be gone. He wouldn't go to this much trouble unless you knew how to protect it hermetically, and that's what John Dee knew. And so I think that's where the lead comes in. That's just my speculation, but I believe that's what he's saying and that's why. I mean, because when you look at the three caskets scene and you think, geez, what is that about? I mean, gold, silver, or lead. It's the very, very structure of the whole story, Catholic altar stone. So to finish this, anyway, 2 lines, 4 dots. If you were to say, honestly, I think if I was to say, or anyone was to say in the last 100 years, ask Einstein to draw 2 lines and 4 dots in such a way that you can, just with that, you can predict 12 of the most important mathematical constants, the foot, the cubit, the meter, and the geographic coordinates of the Great Pyramid. Ask Stephen Hawking to do it. Ask Richard Feynman to do it. Ask any of the great names of I don't think anybody could do it. What? John Dee did that. I mean, just imagine, draw 2, because that's what it's based on. It's just those 2 lines and those 4 dots, and then you put all the rest of the text around it, make it look like it's just punctuation on the cover of the sonnets.
Have you shown Jason Louv this part yet?
Yeah.
Yeah. What did he say about this actual part?
Oh, well, I mean, he's totally on board with it and understands it's stunning. Yeah.
Yeah, because it must be interesting for him studying John Dee for so long, and then you come along and throw this whole thing at him.
Yeah, yeah. Well, he threw stuff at me too, and I mean, see, we're working in different areas, and you can't understand necessarily everyone's work, or it's not for you to do it. No, this is my particular piece of the puzzle, and this is what I'm committed to for the rest of my life. I'll just keep doing this until I drop. It never seems to end. There's stuff coming in all the time. But this one, here's the finish of it. Lovely. Yeah, I just love the end of this. By the letters that are left outside the circle. I mean, how clever is that? By G. In those days, by G meant by geometry or by geodesy. It meant to measure the earth. So the whole circle is a metaphor for the earth. To be measuring the earth. G was the symbol the Pythagoreans used for geodesy, to measure the earth. There's an E kept outside there. Well, that's east, isn't it? In this, all these lines radiating out from this G, maybe they're lines of latitude. Well, that's east. If you draw a baseline through the 2 T's and the 2 dots there. And here you've got another tangent that gives you another angle here. That's these 2 are the ones to measure. They are oriented to the north of their baseline and to the east. And the other the letters that he's left outside are NE, northeast. He's telling you to be measuring the earth by latitudes. This is east, this is northeast. And you measure them, you've got it accurate through trigonometry, you measure those when the angles end up being bad. I've had people say to me, "Oh, it wasn't that accurate, was it? He was off to the left of the pyramid." I mean, come on, jeez. They didn't even know how to do longitude in those days. Galileo was still wrestling with the problem 25 years after Shakespeare died. He didn't know how to do it, and supposedly longitude was not solved for another 150 or so
I bet
years.
you Google's got it wrong, man.
What?
I bet you Google's got it wrong.
No, no, I don't think it's that. This is precise, very precise. The point is, in terms of latitude, that is 99.999% accurate. In terms of longitude, it's still 99.99% accurate. You have to remember, this is 400 years ago, when the maps of the time are accurate as far as latitude is concerned, but longitude, ships used to have to just hug the coast, right? And if you look at maps of the time, they are off in an east-westerly direction across the Mediterranean by as much as 500 miles out. They are so off because no one could measure longitude. And yet in John Dee's writings, you see that he had actually solved it. He had solved longitude to a tremendously accurate degree. So he can get it to within what that is just 300 yards of the pyramid, which is, I mean, it's still a staggering accomplishment.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So,
is that the Giza Plateau on that side? I can't remember which side the Giza Plateau is on. It might just be the right center of that or something. Yeah, it's close.
To the west of the pyramid, you're saying? Well, it's all the Giza Plateau.
Yeah. So it's right. I mean, it's hitting there. It's right there. It's hitting it. That's pretty amazing.
So, well, where it was showing was west of the Great Pyramid and north of the mid-sized pyramid, Khafre.
Yeah.
I hate giving them those names because that refers to the pharaohs who were supposedly buried there, which is complete bull. You know?
Yeah.
But anyway, that's what we call them.
So Darren would rather be
John
called the
Dee
Great Seed Vault.
John Dee cracked the pyramid.
Yeah.
John Dee what?
John Dee cracked the pyramid.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, it's a staggering thing. I mean, it really is. Hey, man, you guys are such. We should do this every week.
Yeah, we should. We could talk about.
I mean, you are really. It is such a joy, honestly, to get nothing but intelligent questions and observations. I mean, you're right on it. You're right on all of it. It's great.
These real life mysteries are fascinating. I mean, just going back that far too. I mean, we're here at an event right now, and we're going through other mysteries, and it's fascinating. I mean, it's really, really interesting.
Yeah. So, what are you guys up to? You're in Colorado, did you say, doing this thing with this conference? Then?
Yeah, we're at a big cabin, and we're doing tours around Colorado, and then looking at the Chaco culture, and then we're doing Randall Carlson's here with us doing presentations on all kinds of stuff. Yeah, like ancient mysteries, alternative history, and catastrophism. Symbolism, occult symbolism. I mean, it fits right in with what you're doing. Like I think we're going to send him this video and see what he thinks. I mean, it's amazing. Yeah,
play it for the next trimester.
Do you often go on the road doing this?
No. It's like
we're just getting started.
Yeah.
Just getting started. This is our first shot at it.
Oh man, I hope I could attract an audience that would help draw attention to it. But whatever I could do, I'll tell people about it. Yeah. I mean, that would be great, wouldn't it? You could be getting so much more exposure by going on the road and doing massive events like this. This is great.
Yeah, it's good.
I wish you all the best with it.
Yeah, thanks.
It looks like a really cool place there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going great so far. Hey, maybe we'll do an event one day.
That'd be lovely. Yeah.
So are you doing anything else besides CPAC coming up?
Yeah, I'm doing, actually, Jamie Janover is doing his big festival, his Midsummer Solstice Festival I'm not sure exactly where he lives, but somewhere 2 hours south of Denver, I think, or north of Denver. I don't know which, but we were talking just the other night, and so he's booked me to do my Midsummer Night's Eve presentation on Midsummer Night's Eve.
That'll be fantastic.
On the 3rd. So I'm doing that, and in a few weeks' time. That'll be fun. CPAC coming up. I'm doing a Resonance Academy course. That's Nassim Haramein's. He has something called the Resonance Academy, and he invited me to Peru to do Machu Picchu with them on their last big trip, and I gave a presentation there along with a person that I've recently been working with, Robert Grant, who has amazing mathematical discoveries. You should reach out to him and have him on your show.
Yeah, he's on the list. Yeah, we're here with some people that have traveled around with Nassim as well. So
put in a good word for us.
Yeah.
So Robert and I did 2 presentations that night, and they were very, very, very well received. And so then Nassim said he wants me to put all of this work on his Resonance Academy. So I'm doing a proper resonance delegate course on that. Probably in the first week in August it will start, and at the same time I'll be launching a Patreon site. So
Nice.
I haven't done any promotion of it all this time because I was waiting to have the whole full story. I just knew that the research was going so deep that I couldn't really start promoting. And if you're going to properly promote and start really doing your thing out there, there's less time for research, and I just wanted to know it all. Now, that's a huge statement. I can't ever say I will know it all about this. It just goes on and on and on. But I know enough now that I've got the entire overall picture of why he did this and what it's about. And so I'm ready now to finally start really promoting it, because otherwise I'll be dead.
No, that's great. And you did a great job on that presentation. You did a great job on that presentation. Very visual, very easy to follow. Very it was so much easier watching that than trying to follow along just on audio.
Yeah.
So it was great.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the internet wasn't good enough to do it live here, but we'll get it uploaded right away, and we'll promote. We'll promote it as much as we can anyway.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
That's great.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys. Really, seriously, it's such a joy and a pleasure. You're so. You're so spot on. It's really supportive.
That's good.
It made me feel great.
Yeah,
great.
thanks
Thank
so
you.
much. Well, enjoy your time out there at the festival and all that, and then on your presentations. Good luck with all that.
Rumor is that it's legal cannabis in Colorado. That's what I hear. So
That could be why Darren's slurring his words a little bit.
I got into the
Edibles again?
I got into the what are they? They're brownies.
Yeah.
Goddamn brownies got me again.
They sneak up on you, Darren.
Sneak up on you.
That'll happen. Yeah, watch out for the brownies. Other than that, you have a wonderful night, sir.
All right, buddy. Thanks.
You too, man. Both of you. Thank you so much.
Take care.
And say hi to Adam Loyal. I wasn't sure what his position was within the whole thing, but he was the one communicating with me to set it up. So say hi to Adam.
We will.
Thanks, guys.
Absolutely. He's just generally amazing.
All right.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Stay cool. Bye.
And that was our chat with our second chat with Mr. Alan Green. What'd you think, buddy?
That was a good finish.
Yeah, that was fantastic.
Went over a little bit with review at the beginning, and then I was hoping that
it'd be good to have the video of that for the YouTube channel.
Yeah,
that'll be good
fantastic.
stuff.
Yeah.
The first podcast with an audience.
It is hard to believe all the things he put together there with 664 and 426. It's pretty crazy.
Oh, it's crazy. Well, like I said, I think the real mystery there is why all those can be laid out with like 7 points.
Yeah.
That's like, it says something about the fabric of fucking reality. And
I think it was purposeful. They were figuring, they knew all that stuff before. It's ancient knowledge coming through it maybe through the mystery schools or whatever, but John Dee's tapping into that. I think that's all purposeful.
Tapping into it.
Yeah. Angels, downloading shit from angels.
It still doesn't change the fact that you can describe all those things with 7 points.
Yeah, I know, but that's why they knew all that stuff. It's not just a matrix type thing.
Maybe it is.
Maybe. But yeah, it's cool. Thanks to everybody for joining us here in person.
Yeah, big thanks to Alan for coming on the show. Big thanks to all the people who are in studio live, hanging out. Big thanks to all the supporters of the show. Grimerica.ca/support. Head over there today. Become a supporter of the show. Sign up for a monthly on Stripe, Patreon, or PayPal. Any of those things would be fantastic. You can do a one-time donation. Just support any way you can. It's fabulous when you do that. It makes us just feel all warm and fuzzy inside. And it helps us do wonderful things like events with Randall Carlson and other such people like that maybe down the road. Anything else? Do all the stuff in the show notes. And yeah, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.
Oh, the rain came down, my wallet got soaked, the money ran out. Oh, the mud was gold, the ground was cold, my dignity was never bought nor sold. Oh, choose a career, get your mind clear, keep up with the Joneses. Oh, you go in, you atone for your greed. You atone for your greed with the electric messiah. But that's just your publicity stunt. I can see your duplicity in front of your lines. Oh, the rain came down, my wallet got soaked, the money ran out. Oh, the ground was cold, the mud was gold, my dignity was never bought nor sold. Oh, choose a career, get your mind clear, keep up with the Joneses. Oh, you go in, you atone for your greed. You atone for your greed with the electric messiah. Oh, but that's just your publicity stunt. I can see your duplicity in front of your